is up, Z fam? Welcome to a new video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my Battlefield 6 REDSEC settings, mostly my controller settings, but we'll go into a few other settings as well, but to get you guys right, because the settings in this game, as many of you know, they're extremely complicated. They are very in-depth. That's not necessarily a negative thing. There's just a lot to go through, so it can be a bit confusing, and I'm here to bring some light upon you today. Maybe some of your homies. Send this video to one of your boys if you're trying to get a little blueprint from where you should start. Listen, at the end of the day, settings also come down to personal preference. So I'm just going to give you guys what I use in the game to point you in the right direction, and then you guys can make any tweaks that you feel like would kind of work a little bit better with your play style. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you send this to a friend that needs some help with their settings, that's dropping no kills every game and really screwing your squad over. Make sure you send this to your boy. Let's get into it. So we're going to do a very deep dive into the controller settings here shortly, but I will give you a few of my other ones. A lot of people in the streams have been asking for my settings. Now I'm going to be able to just give them a link to this video. It'll be way easier. But like I said, use this as a blueprint to kind of point you in the right direction, but there might be some stuff in here that you prefer to have on or off or high or low or this or that. Just use this as a way to point you in the right direction. But there will be some controller settings that I highly advise you at least test out, because I know a lot of people like myself are coming over from Call of Duty. We're enjoying Battlefield 6. We're enjoying the new BR. I'm not trying to come in here and change things, okay? But obviously, there's a lot of the people coming over from the COD community that want to get into Battlefield, and they're just having a hard time because the controller, I don't know about you guys, but off rip, the way the controller feels off rip, default settings, it's pretty rough. I did not enjoy it. I thought I was going to have to switch to mouse and keyboard on this game, but after spending hours upon hours in these settings, tweaking them, playing with them, then tweaking them more, playing with them, tweaking with them again, I have found, without a doubt, the perfect balance. It feels much closer to what I'm used to, and I'm able to just absolutely frag out. So let's get into the gameplay settings first. For my infantry aim sensitivity, I've got this set to 50, but we're going to go more in depth in all this stuff in the actual controller settings tab. Crouch toggle sprint, I have this set to crouch instead of the defaulted stand. Vault over sprint on, sprint door bash barge on. Sprint tap crouch for slide, turn this off. My parachute auto deploy, I just have this defaulted to skydive insertions. Roll camera and landing roll off. Mount type side and up. Mount breakout instant. Mount presets combo. Peak type disabled. The peaking is the same as BO6, how they've introduced like that kind of like that side peaking stuff. That is all just visual. That has no change to what people actually see on their screen. So when you're peeking, when you're coming around a corner, that's all visual on your screen showing you that peak, but your body's sticking out just as much as if you have this disabled. So I just personally turn it off, because it's the same thing I use in COD. Interact and reload, we have this on prioritize interact. And now let's just jump over to the HUD. Show HUD is turned on. Infantry HUD motion off. Vehicle HUD motion off. As much things on my screen as cannot shake and just create motion as possible, the clearer and easier I am able to focus on the stuff that I need to actually be seeing in game, like enemy players. Now, horizontal HUD padding is basically, as you can see on the right side of the screen here, as I turn this, I'm kind of blocking a little bit my webcam, but when I turn this in, when I bring this in, obviously you can see the HUD, minimap, all those things get brought closer to the screen, closer to the middle, and on 0 is what it is default. Now, this is one of those things where you may prefer to just keep this on default if you don't want it to be closer to your middle of your screen. But I will explain to you why I personally set this to 50. The reason why I have this a little bit more into the middle of the screen is it makes it so you don't have to turn as much. I know, again, it's just slight split second, millisecond differences and slight advantages, but a plethora of slight advantages are what might give you the edge over your opponents. So it's just bringing it in a little bit, makes it so I don't have to move my head as much to look at obviously on my HUD, and that might help you out. All these are defaulted to on. Advanced HUD icon settings. My big map opacity I have set to 85. All of these are defaulted except for friendly icons, I have set to 85, and squad icon scale, I also have this set to 85. Everything else is defaulted. It's basically making it so that my teammates' icons are just not as big. That's it. I don't want them blocking the way when I'm trying to focus in on a gunfight, when I'm trying to look at enemies. I don't want that blocking my screen in any way. These are usually set to 100. It's not a massive difference I have it set to, but you could try changing that up to 85. For my minimap size, this is normally defaulted to small. I like boosting it up a little bit. I played at first on large. I've since brought it down to medium. I think it's a perfect sweet spot. It just makes your minimap just slightly bigger, but not super massive so it's covering your whole screen, but big enough to catch your attention, because you should be looking at that minimap. Just like in COD, just because you don't have a UAV up doesn't mean your minimap is not useful and can give you useful information. For instance, if you're in a situation where you see where your team is, you can kind of in your mind draw up where the enemies might be located. It doesn't necessarily always have that information. It's all situational, but looking at your minimap is still very important. So again, it's a good thing to have set maybe just a little bit bigger. The minimap background opacity, same as the big map, I have set to 85. Everything else is defaulted here. Except for view distance on foot. This is normally defaulted to 160. I cranked this up to 250. Then scrolling down just a little bit further to my crosshair. Now, this is where you can change some stuff up a little bit depending on what your preferences are. My crosshair color, I like to have it on a nice vibrant color like a green. I have that set to green. I mean, optic green, monster green. I like the color green. It's a nice color. And then the infantry crosshair projection. This is a big one. Basically, turning infantry crosshair projection off makes it so that the crosshair stays focused on where the player is aiming. It's gonna help you a ton. Again, this is just, I like my screen not shaking and moving as much as possible. This is one of those settings. It even says it right here. Enable crosshair projection to potentially lessen motion sickness that can be caused by certain camera motions. I just keep that bad boy off. Scrolling down just a little further to the hit indicator, I've changed the headshot color. You can actually individually in this game change the color of that. Usually it was defaulted, if I'm not mistaken, to white, which is the same as when you just hit somebody normally. But if you change this to a different color, you can know if you're hitting a headshot or not, which means you're going to be knowing if you're doing more damage or not. Obviously, when you do damage in the game, it does show a number next to it, so you kind of can tell when you're hitting a headshot versus a body shot. But this clearly dictates and tells you exactly that, okay, you are hitting a headshot when the colors and the hit marker colors turn green. It lets you know that. Everything else in this tab is defaulted. Now we can get into, without a doubt, the most confusing controller settings UI I have ever seen in my life. Again, okay, I say it's confusing. It's more so just because there is so much to talk about here and so much that we can go through that really and a lot of it really does have a huge effect on how your controller feels on this game. Like I said, when I first started playing Battlefield 6, I've been a COD kid most of my life. Obviously, listen, I'm not trying to start the COD versus Battlefield 6 wars, okay? Why can't we all just play games and have fun, bro? Why can't we just have fun, bro? I'm not coming over here to try to change everything on Battlefield 6, okay? I'm just here to have a good time, all right? But I will say, I don't know about you guys, you may have also felt that the controller just did not feel good. And for me, it did not. It took a lot of tweaking, and there are a lot of settings to go through here. So again, it's overcomplicated. I say it's super complicated and it's very in-depth, but again, it's not necessarily a negative thing. That maybe is more of a positive thing if you want to view it in that light, because you just have even more you can edit here and get into. But it can be pretty overwhelming and make you just give up and play mouse and keyboard. But let's keep the controller gang alive. Let's get in here. Let me give you the God tier settings. This is going to make your game feel way closer to COD, way closer to that natural feel. Because I don't know about you guys, because the one thing I noticed about the controller feeling, if just the default controller settings on Battlefield 6, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like something is off. It feels like the accelerations are a little too fast or too slow. Something is off. But this, we've solved it. Just hear me out. So we're going to go into edit settings. We're going to go controller settings, and let's get into it. For my infantry aim sensitivity, I have this set to 50. Invert vertical look infantry, we keep this turned off. Field of view, I have this set to 120. This is the max amount that you can have this set to. People come into the chat all the time and say, wow, bro, your game is so fast. How does your character move so fast in the game? My character doesn't move like that. It's because of the field of view. It creates an illusion. My character is not moving faster than somebody playing on 80 FOV or 105 FOV. It is just, the camera is now stretched back, so it's just a character, everything looks faster paced. I actually personally like that placebo. I like the game feeling a little bit faster paced, but regardless of a placebo, you can also just see more of your surroundings. So if somebody's flanking up on your left and your right, wherever it may be, you could see a little bit better. Now, that trade-off does come at a bit of a cost, because the higher your field of view is, your aiming is going to take a slight hit, just a slight hit. And to put it in perspective for you, most Call of Duty multiplayer players, so when you're not playing on a big map and you're just in close quarters and you're taking a lot of those fights, they'll actually sit between like 103 and like 105 FOV, if I'm not mistaken. Whereas you'll see a lot of Battle Royale players just crank that bad boy up to 120. You want to be able to see most of your surroundings. And that is just personally what I like to play on. But this is one of those settings where I would highly advise, for a Battle Royale situation, I would highly advise you stay between 105 and 120. But again, this is all, this type of stuff, a lot of it is personal preference. But if you want that little bit of an edge of being able to, a good middle ground of being able to aim really solid and see your enemies, I would stay between 105 and 120. My vertical aim ratio, I have this set to 50. Vertical zoom ratio, 80. Uniform infantry aiming, I have set to off. My infantry aim assist, you just keep that defaulted at 100. You don't want to turn down your aim assist. Infantry aim assist slowdown, you do want to tweak though. I have this set to 70. For infantry aim input curve, I like setting this to the Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4 settings. Infantry zoom aim input curve is kept on standard. My stick input accelerations, I've tried all these different ones, and I personally prefer the Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, Battlefield Bad Company preset. And for my aiming left and right acceleration, I set this to 20. Now the default for the aiming left and right acceleration is 70. And this is the setting that I find makes the game not feel normal for me. It does not feel good on 70. I cranked this all the way down to 20. I feel like it's way smoother. Try it out for yourselves again. Like I said, I think you're going to like it. For movement, moving down to movement, infantry sprint, toggle, double tap forward sprint, off. Those are defaulted. Sprint, this is a big one right here. I have sprint defaulted to pushing forward on my left stick instead of tapping in on it. What does that do, you say? It basically gives you automatic tack sprint. So that instead of having to press down on the sprinting stick, you can just push forward and your character will automatically start sprinting. Slide is just set to the button I slide with because I play claw, so I just hold my controller like this. Down in the zoom settings, I've got infantry weapon zoom hold, zoom L2, steady scope hold, steady scope is L3. Infantry aim sensitivity, here we go. This is humongous. I have this set to 80. I have it turned down just a little bit. Usually this is defaulted on 100. Zoom transition sensitivity smoothing, I keep this turned on. And then for all of these different settings, my boy Joe, told me about this. And I ever since I've switched it, it's way smoother. We were playing the other day and he had me switch all of my zoom aim sensitivities. I usually just had them all set to 80. But a problem that I was running into was anytime I picked up a sniper rifle, the zoom sensitivity was just way too slow at 80. I love having a bit of a slower ADS when I'm using a 1x to a 3.5x, as you can see here. But as soon as I get to my 4 to 5x, I have it cranked up to 100, so it's just a little bit faster. And then when I'm on a 6 to 10 zoom, so when I'm sniping, I'm on 150 sensitivity, and this feels beautiful. It feels perfect. Try it out for yourselves. It is incredible. All this stuff is default except for the peak type. Like I said, we turn this on disabled. I don't know why that was turned on, but I keep this disabled. And that is it for the control settings in the infantry, but that is not it for the controller settings overall. I am not going to go into ground vehicles, transport vehicles, aircrafts, helicopters, gunners, joystick. I'm not going to go into any of that stuff. I don't personally use a lot of the vehicles in this game. I just like to run and gun a ton. It's just, I know a COD player, he wants to run and gun. He doesn't want to be immersed in the helicopter passenger seat. No, I do. I enjoy riding around in it when someone is a good pilot, but I personally just haven't taken the time to get into that yet. Maybe I will eventually, but I'm not going to I'm not going to lead you astray and give you a bunch of random settings for this. There's tons of videos out there for you guys to go check out your gunner settings and all this. This is mainly just for your controller settings, so you can be locked into your gunfights. Some of the most important settings in this page are all the way at the bottom. I don't know why they put this at the bottom, but controller tuning. Click on this. Vibration, I keep that off. And intensity, obviously, I just keep that at 0, whatever. I mean, it's off already. It doesn't matter. I don't have to have it at 0. Obviously, if you like vibration, you can play with it on. I grew up my whole life playing Call of Duty with vibration turned on like a complete psycho. And over the last, 7 years, ever since I started streaming and playing like a little bit more competitively with Warzone and whatnot, I just turned this off. Anything that just shakes or on my screen or in my hands or anything, I just don't want that to be happening. Now, this is going to, if you do play with vibration turned on, I can tell you this just from personal experience of going from on to off. When you turn it off, you are going to feel, it is going to feel extremely weird. Like it is going to feel like, obviously the muscle memory is going to be like every time I shoot, I'm used to feeling this shock of vibration in my hands. You're not going to feel that, and then it's going to feel weird, and you're going to think it just is hindering your gameplay, which at first it actually genuinely might, but over time, once the muscle memory kicks in, believe me, I would personally just tell you to turn this off, but you can do what you like. All I do, I might unlock a core memory for you guys right here, but if you grew up on an Xbox 360 console and you ever used the battery-controlled controllers, not the wired ones, I remember when my batteries would be close to dying, the vibration would stop in the controller, and whenever that happened and I would shoot in-game, I felt like I was complete cheeks. Again, I know how weird it feels to go from having it turned on to off, but after a while, once you get used to it, it's just, in my opinion, it's just better to have. On my controller, left stick and right stick, here are the dead zones that we're working with. On my center dead zone, now some of these are going to be a little bit different for you, but on my center dead zone, I have it on the left stick, I have it set to 2. On the axial dead zone, I have that set to 3. And on the max input threshold, I have that set to 60. Now, the right stick is a lot more important than the right stick is a lot more important than the left stick because this is the one that you're actually going to be aiming with. With these ones, you could set to 60. For instance, the threshold basically means like how much you have to push this stick over for it to get to the max input threshold. So putting it to 60 makes it so that if I push all the way up on this, it's going to get me to a full sprint side to side, whatever I'm moving, faster than if it's set to 100. We're talking milliseconds here, but again, all these small little milliseconds and different changes do add up, so it's worth changing. Now, the right stick's a little bit more important. We keep this defaulted on 100 because I want it so that whenever I do aim, I'm a lot more accurate. I have more, the threshold is set to 100. I have the full range of being able to aim and it not kind of zoom up faster. But for the center dead zones and the axial dead zones, I have this set to 2 and 3, same as my left stick, but these are where you're going to want to tweak a little bit for your personal controller, just because some of you may like stick drift and some of you may not like stick drift. Now, I know you're going to say, how could you like stick drift? I don't love having tons and tons of stick drift on my screen. I know homies like Joe, I know he likes a lot of stick drift. Aiden, I know he likes a little bit of stick drift. There are players that like stick drift and literally if they laid their controller down, their camera would slightly be moving. They kind of like that because they like it so that at all times, the lower you have this set, the lower you have this set, the more, I guess, the faster you are technically going to be able to, that faster that input is going in there. Now, obviously, keeping it at 2 and 3, it makes it so that I have the minimal stick drift, but it's still very, very fast input. Whether some people, I see them have these all the way up here on like 10, and you are hindering yourself heavily because if you're having it up there, there's going to be that input delay, and you just do not want that. So I personally use 2.3, 2.360, 2.3 100, and I think this is a perfect sweet spot. Even if you get a little bit of stick drift. What you can do if you do not like stick drift is you can take this, you could take these values here and slowly turn them up in game. Just go in game, go into the firing range, slowly turn these up one at a time, and then go back into the firing range and see if you have stick drift until you don't have stick drift anymore. And yeah, it's that simple. And then for my controller dead zones, I just have these set. And then for my controller trigger dead zones, I have these fully set down to 0, 5, 0, 5. Again, just for the fastest possible reaction speed as possible. I just have these set as low as possible. So as soon as I click on the triggers, I'm getting a shot or I'm getting an ADS. And that is it for the controller settings. Holy shit. Again, I swear, these are going to feel way smoother. When I first picked up the controller, I genuinely thought on this game I was going to have to switch to mouse and keyboard. I know a lot of people said this is a very good mouse and keyboard game, but it also is a good controller game. You just have to have a freaking PhD in controller settings to be able to actually get your controller to a place like that. So, but talking about all of these small little advantages that kind of add up into one big thing to make you an even better player. Something that you could definitely do right now that is probably hindering your gameplay heavily is taking your thumbs off the thumbsticks. doing this all the time to run and jump and then run and slide or duck and run and change your weapon and reload. You're always doing this, and the problem that you're creating is you're having less control over your character. How can you solve that problem? Well, I personally play claw. I hold my controller like this, which is super weird and awkward for a lot of people. I've been playing like this since I was a little kid, so I'm super, super used to it. It is fully natural to me, but for a lot of people, it feels completely unnatural and they cannot get used to it. But you are still in luck. You are not a lost cause because SCUF has you covered. This is my personal SCUF controller and design right here. Aside from this sexy, beautiful controller that you can design to look beautiful, these controllers are meant to take your gameplay to the next level by adding paddles to the back of the controller, which you can remap buttons to, so you don't have to take your thumb off the thumbstick, that right thumbstick, and lose those little microseconds and milliseconds that could be the difference between you winning the gunfight and losing the gunfight. You also customize things like thumbstick height and digital triggers versus your default regular triggers. Tons of different ways to customize on SCUF. Make sure you guys use code Zlaner at checkout so you get a discount on your controller. Now let's jump into the graphic settings. Now this video is mainly for the controller settings, but I am going to quickly skim through my graphic settings. My texture quality, I keep this on ultra. Now, real quickly, you're going to see here, this is different than COD for me. So on COD, I would normally have a lot of this stuff turned down to low. I keep all this stuff super low, 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 low. Most stuff would be low. I have a lot of stuff in here low and off, but in this game, I have so many more things kept at high or set to a higher value because I've noticed that this game in particular versus COD is light years ahead stability-wise. I do not crash or have issues with FPS nearly as much as I do in this game. Notice I'm able to set a lot of these things a little bit higher and not need them to be as low. This makes it so the game looks as crispy for me as possible, to be able to see enemy players as good as possible. So I'm just going to scroll through these super quick so you can kind of copy and paste these for your liking. Now, these are some huge settings as well, folks. Massive settings. We've already gone over field of view. For my weapon field of view, I have this set to wide. For weapon motion blur, world motion blur, camera shake, these are all on the lowest values possible. If you are someone that wants to play with more realism, by all means, do that. But if you want a competitive edge, you want the least amount of movement, the least amount of extra stuff happening on your screen so you can be able to see somebody clearer. So I have weapon motion blur off, world motion blur off, camera shake amount low, low, low. And then this one's huge as well. Reduce sprint camera bobbing. Literally just does exactly what it says. It just makes it so your camera in-game isn't going to bounce a ton. If you have this off, it's going to bounce way more. You want this off so you just have that smooth, smooth, smooth look in-game. Chromatic aberration off. Vignette, I don't know how to say that shit, off. Film grain off. And then VSync, you want to go down here and turn this off. But everything else is basically defaulted. Guys, that is it for the graphic settings. Last but not least, we will go into my audio settings. I have my master volume on 100, sound effects volume on 50, music volume on 100, Commander VO volume on 70, Soldier on 70, UI sound effects volume on 50. And then down in configuration, my sound system I have on headphones, and my audio mix I have on war tapes. The audio in this game is pretty awful. I mean, okay, I say awful, but let me maybe reiterate a little bit. You just can't hear enemy footsteps nearly as much as you can hear your own footsteps and your teammates' footsteps. So it's just hard to differentiate. I would love to see them eventually maybe tweak that a bit, make it so that you can't hear your teammates' footsteps as much as enemy footsteps. But for now, you kind of just got to deal with all-out chaos. The map in the game plays very, very loud. You can still hear footsteps, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of tough sometimes to really zero in on them and hear them. Sometimes I can just run up on a team and they have no idea I'm there, and vice versa. But I still do use war tapes. I prefer this one. I've kind of tested out a few of these different ones, and I personally just like the sound of war tapes, but I wouldn't say there's a huge advantage to using either one. You can kind of just use which one feels good for you. But folks, that is it for the settings. Thank you so very much for watching the video. Go out there and destroy some lobbies. Let me know if you guys down in the comments if these settings helped you out and actually made you be able to play the game on controller. Because like I said, at first, I genuinely thought I was going to have to switch to mouse and keyboard when I started playing this BR. And as soon as I got the controller settings locked in, after hours upon hours of degenerate grinding in the settings and in the game, we have settled on something that feels beautiful. This feels super good. I'm having a great time on the game. I hope you guys are enjoying the BR as well. Ladies and gentlemen, until the next time, I'll see you soon.